All right, guys. So I think everybody else is in here now, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us today for the provider information session on the Indiana Education Scholarship Account Program. We are a brand new school choice initiative that's launching for the 2022-23 school year, and our entire purpose is to help families customize their child's educational experience by providing students with disabilities tax-free scholarship money that they can use for pre-approved educational services and expenses. So I really want to highlight that tax-free part because that is not going to inhibit families from using any kind of other state or federal help that they may be using at the moment, such as Medicaid waivers, like free and reduced lunch, any of those kinds of services. So I really want to hit that home, and we'll talk about it a little bit more here soon. So we are administered by the Indiana Treasurer of State's office, and we are led by Jackie Guillermo, who comes to us with 15 plus years of experience in the special education field. And then my name is Emma Weiss. I am the Outreach and Engagement Coordinator for Indiana ESA, and I will be your main point of contact as a provider at any point in this program. All right, so I really want to start with student eligibility because as providers, you guys are going to be the ones who are keyed in most to the students who are going to be using our program. So I just want to give you guys a little bit of a background on who will be eligible. We do have about 4 different eligibility requirements. The first being that all students need to be a resident of the state of Indiana, and that will be proven during their application process. Number 2, they need to qualify for special education and have an active IEP, ISP, or CSEP. They also need to be between the ages of 5 and 22 years old by August 1st of 2022. Unfortunately, if they are going to be 5 by August 2nd of 2022, they will not be eligible and they will need to wait. So that is a very hard cutoff line of that August 1st. And number 4 is the income requirement. Families' annual income for this program cannot exceed 300% of the federal free and reduced lunch income requirement. Over here off to the right-hand side of the screen, I do have a chart that lays out the income requirement. And as you can see, most families are going to be eligible in the state of Indiana. So for example, a family of 4 cannot make more than that $154,000 a year. So as I mentioned before, Indiana ESA is all about allowing families to customize their students' educational experience. And this is done through you guys, our participating entities. So you can see here some of our participating entities who will qualify for the program. The first being qualified non-public schools. This is important because all students who participate in our program cannot be enrolled full-time at public or charter schools. So the next one that we can take part in like tutors and tutoring agencies, educational service providers. Public and charter schools will also qualify to be a participating entity, even though students cannot be enrolled in their school full time. They can still take part in any programs, camps, or individual courses that those public or charter schools are offering. So for example, if a family decides to educate from home, then they are more than welcome to enroll their child in an individual math course if they need help teaching their student that at their local public school. They just cannot be enrolled full time. Can also use occupational therapists, camps, and assessment providers. So that assessment provider piece is important as well because all students within an Indiana ESA program will need to take any state mandated testing, such as iStep, iLearn, or IAM. So they will need to be able to take that assessment whether they are enrolled in a qualified non-public school or if they're educating from home. So now that we've taken a look at these participating entities, we're going to shift over to what is counted as a qualified expense in our program. And as I mentioned before, tuition and fees at qualified non-public schools can definitely be a qualified expense. They can use their ESA dollars to pay for that tuition and fees. Fees for assessment. So if they do need to have to pay for fees for things like the SAT, or if they need to go someplace else and do iStep or iLearn or IAM, one of those tests, they're more than welcome to. Or they can also take part in AP testing, IB testing, any kind of other academic testing. So these educational services, including tutoring, as long as all of the educational services and therapies, they must be in the student's IEP, ISP, or CSEP, or they need to be prescribed by their treating physician. Payments for paraprofessionals and aides, once again, that's going to need to be within the student's IEP, ISP, or CSEP, or also being prescribed by a physician. Individual courses, extracurricular activities, training programs and camps, occupational and other therapies, and transportation. Those will all be qualified expenses. Now, up here, you can see that little asterisk where it says services may be virtual. Tutoring and educational services, those may be virtual. Training programs and camps can be virtual, and so can occupational therapy. Now, as of right now, with the way our law stands, it can only be occupational therapy that may be virtual. All other therapies that are listed in that student's plan or is prescribed will need to be in person. Okay. So now you might be hearing this and thinking, well, that sounds a lot like the Choice Scholarship Program. And in a lot of ways, you're correct. However, we do have some key differences. So the main way that we are very similar to the Choice Scholarship Program is, or the voucher program, is that student eligibility. So we do follow the exact same guidelines for the special education track and Choice. However, where we differ is going to be with the expenses. With Choice, it is only going to be for tuition and fees at qualified schools, whereas with Indiana ESA, students can use it for more than tuition. They can use it for all of those qualified expenses that we had just discussed. The application window is also a little different. As it stands right now, Choice does have 2 application windows, one in the late spring, early summer for the fall semester, and then one again in the late fall, early winter for the spring semester. Our application window for students will open on June 27th and close August 5th. We only have the one for this year, and that's it for students at this moment. However, provider applications did open on Monday, and that is on a rolling basis. And I really want to hit home, at no point are we closing provider applications. So if at any point you decide you want to be a provider with Indiana ESA, you are more than welcome to apply. There is not a cutoff. And then the fourth difference between Indiana ESA and Choice are the way that the payments are done. So with the Choice Scholarship, everything is handled through the schools. DOE directly pays the schools, and the families don't have access to that money. With our program with Indiana ESA, families have access to their scholarship funds in a secure online portal, and then they make those payments to to vendors directly, whether that be their school or to other participating entities. So a big question that we get a lot of the time is about the funding of the scholarship along with the payment structure. So first, let's talk a little bit about funding. So how is the scholarship calculated? The scholarships are calculated based on the student's tuition support dollars from their local public school and the APC funding based on the student's level of disability and the student's plan. So we take 90% of that tuition support that the school corporation that the school or the student would have gone to, and we take 90% of that plus any of the APC funding, so that additional pupil count funding that's based on the student's level of disability, pull that together, and that is how the Indiana ESA scholarship is calculated. Parents are able to access the money in 4 quarterly payments through that secure online portal. All right, and then another big question we get a lot is there a cap on the account? And no, there is not a cap on the account. In fact, families do have the opportunity to roll over up to $1,000 per year, and that can accumulate. So you could have a student who starts Indiana ESA in kindergarten this year, and then if they decide to roll over $1,000 each year, they can they can start their 9th grade year with $9,000 that they have rolled over, plus their ESA for that year. Okay? So it's accumulative. However, there is a limited number of scholarships we can award this first year, but that does not mean that students should not apply. So as of right now, like I said, there's a very limited number of scholarships that we can give out, but the higher the application numbers are, the more need that legislators can see, and we can have that cap of, removed from our program so that we can help more students later on. Now, let's get into payments. It's important to note as providers that all payments are made in arrears through our secure online portal, and these payment process will be initiated once an invoice is uploaded by a parent and reviewed by the account specialist. So over here on the left-hand side of the screen, you can kind of see an infographic that I put together for you to kind of walk through how that will look. So at the very top, we've got our hand with our heart, and that's going to be the service. So once that service is done being provided by the provider to the student, they will then give the invoice to the families. The families will then upload their invoice into the online portal, at which point an account specialist will start to review it. The account specialist will go through that invoice to ensure that everything on there is a qualified expense. And if it is, they will approve that invoice and then send that payment over to the provider. However, if there is an expense on there that is not a qualified expense, the invoice will be sent back to the parents. The parents will then need to go talk to the provider about having that invoice amended, so that way we can start the process again with having it uploaded, and then it'll be reviewed again. And then once they see that everything on there is a qualified expense, it'll be approved. Okay. If there is ever a remaining balance, so then providers will need to be prepared to accept payments outside of Indiana ESA. And that will be along the lines of having, sorry, let me admit somebody. So whether that be with a check or cash or credit or debit card, you will need to be prepared to accept payments outside of Indiana ESA funds. Another big question we get a lot is about insurance. So students are still more than able to use their insurance. In fact, we encourage it so that they can get the most out of their ESA account. So for example, if you have a student who is going to Emma's ABA and they are getting 1 hour of ABA therapy for $100, and insurance will pick up 90% of that, you will bill insurance as normal. And then with that 10% balance, you are able to give the invoice to the families saying that there is still a $10 balance, and then they can submit that invoice and start that payment process through our program. The same with Medicaid waivers. So I've gotten a lot of questions about Medicaid waivers and if they can still use Medicaid waivers and an ESA, and the answer is absolutely yes. After doing some research into Medicaid waivers, I've noticed a lot that the Medicaid waivers are more medical based, whereas Indiana ESA is very education based. So there are some overlaps, including like ABA therapy, occupational, speech and language. So we would encourage families to speak with their Medicaid waiver or case manager, there we go, or their ESA account specialist in order to best maximize the use of both programs. However, as providers, you cannot double bill for the same service. Okay, so that's payments. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about this invoice I keep mentioning. So, like I said, you will need to have that invoice available for families, but we're not going to provide you a template that you have to use for our program. We do have a couple of things that do need to be included on the invoice though. So all invoices must include the student's full legal name, the date of service, and invoice dates, and an itemized list of qualified expenses with a description. That description does not need to be in depth, but we do also need the full legal name of the provider that is providing the service with that description, the total amount due, the payment due dates, and the unique participating entity ID number that is provided upon application. So a couple of things to note here is going to be that full legal name of the provider. You can see over here on the example on the right-hand side that we have the 2 hours of ABA therapy that was provided by Pamela Halbert, okay? Then we also can see that we have the 3 hours of math tutoring for algebra and the 3 hours of science tutoring in biology. It's a description of what is being provided, but it's also very quick. So we don't need full sentences or a paragraph regarding what was done, just a very quick synopsis of it. The next thing I want to highlight is that here a participating entity number in the bottom left-hand corner of that invoice. This is so that we can ensure that the proper service providers are being paid for the services they are providing. So we are anticipating applications coming in from larger chains such as Sylvan Learning Center or Huntington Learning Services, like larger entities that have sites all across the state. We want to ensure that, for example, if there is a student who is getting tutoring from Sylvan Learning Center in Fishers, that we are not paying Sylvan Learning Center in Evansville for those services. So this is just a guide for us to be able to ensure that we are paying the correct service provider. So it'll be important that you have that participating entity number on the invoice that you have families upload. Now, another question we get is about fee schedules. We will not be providing a specific fee schedule for our students. In fact, we encourage you to continue using the same fee schedule that you have already established and that your families are already comfortable with. However, you cannot charge an Indiana ESA student any differently than a non-Indiana ESA student. So you cannot charge them any more for a service. Okay, we'll keep going. Next thing I want to talk about is Class Wallet. I keep saying a lot about the secure online portal and the secure online account where the money will be managed, and that will be Class Wallet. They are very familiar with ESAs across the country. They have been administering the ESAs for Arizona, which is the longest running program in the country, North Carolina, Virginia, you name it, they have experience with it. So I want to note down here this customer support. If at any point you do have questions about any type of payment that's coming through, you are more than welcome to reach out to Class Wallet. They have bilingual remote support from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, or 10 to 4 on Saturdays. Now, for what you need to do is you'll need to set up your account. So once your application has been approved, you'll receive an email from Class Wallet to set up your account to receive payments. At that time, you'll need to provide any ACH information for your business in order to get those payments from our program. Okay. Now, let's talk about Kira. So this is Kira. The Kira portal is going to be where you're receiving or completing the application. This will also be where families will upload the invoices and will be able to find you. While you're completing the application, you'll complete a marketing profile that families will be able to view in the online portal, and families will be able to search for the type of service they're wanting. They can also filter it by distance and zip code. So if at any point a family goes in there and they are saying, okay, I need to find a math tutor, for example, they can go into the portal, type in math tutor, and then, okay, well, I need it within Indianapolis. So they can go in, type in their zip code under that and filter it just for math tutors within Indianapolis. Well, if they decide, you know what, I'm willing to drive 20 miles to find a good math tutor for my student, they can also extend that radius to include 20 miles within Indianapolis. So there are several different ways that families can find you through that portal. So what do I need for the application? Easy. Individuals will need a copy of their professional license or proof of professional certification, and that is it. For businesses, businesses will need a copy of their business license, proof of any accreditations that they may hold, along with an employed provider list that states or that has each provider employed in their business's full legal name, the license and or certification number, and their national or their NPI number. It's the National Provider Identification Number. You can upload this as a Microsoft Word form. You can also upload it as a picture of like a list that you already have or as an Excel spreadsheet document, but they must include those three components of the full legal name, license and or certification number, and the NPI. And the last question is the application easy to complete? Absolutely. We have gone above and beyond to ensure that this application is very easy to complete. I have walked through the application several times and it's not taken me more than 15 minutes to do so. So it should not be a painstaking process for you to fill this out and then get it submitted to us, as long as you have that documentation ready. You can also complete this application on a laptop, a desktop, or a smartphone. So now let's take a look at the application. The first thing you're going to do is come over here to our website. It's www.in.gov/TOS/INESA. Once you're on our website, you're going to click the application page tab. It's that one that is circled right there in bright pink, and it says application page, and that will take you to our application page. At the very top, you will see 3 buttons that look a bit like this, and you are going to click on the one that best describes you. So if you are an individual provider or a business entity, you're going to click on the one that is going to be the most relevant. Okay, so from there, once you've clicked on that, you will see the landing page for the application, and you will click on the not a member. Once you've clicked on that, then you will start your application, and that is going to be the basic information such as your first and last name, your email address, your phone number, the address of the business or where you're providing services, as well as creating a 4-digit PIN that will be used later as an electronic signature when you sign the provider agreement. So you will want to make sure that you remember that that 4-digit PIN along with, you do need to remember that, or you can write it down and keep it in a safe, secure location. After you've hit submit, you will see a box that pops up that indicates that you need to go check your email. Once you've checked your email, you'll find an email from us that has a link in it. You'll click the link and then you'll set your password. So once you've set your password, you will find the landing page for the application and you will click on that new application button. Okay. From there, you will need to select what kind of service you will be providing along with the qualified expenses that you'll be providing. So for example, if you're an education service center and you are providing assessments and tutoring, then you're going to click on assessments and private tutoring. And then under the qualified expense, that educational service, which will be part of, like, it's kind of the catch-all, tutoring is included in that, along with assessments or examinations. So once you've indicated both of those, you will come over here to the drop-down menus of on-site services, virtual services, and languages. You will need to indicate what services you'll be providing on-site, and then it'll also give you a list of the ones that you've selected that can be provided virtually. And if you would like to provide those services virtually, you will indicate at that time. The third one will be the languages, and you will indicate what languages you will be providing any services in. So whether that be just English, or if you provided English and Spanish, Korean, whatever your language you are providing services in, you will indicate at that time. After that, you will come over here and you will then upload all of your qualifications. So if you're a business, that's going to be your business license, the accreditations if you hold any, and that employed provider list. If you're an individual, then it's going to be your professional license or certification. Okay, continue on. Once you've uploaded all of the required documentation, you will start to create your marketing profile. This will be what families can view. So this will be your time to shine and personalize this to make it to where families want to come to your service. So Jackie, our executive director, had gone through and made a mock-up of one. This will be roughly what it looks like at the moment. Oh, let me add somebody in here. At the moment, you can see here where we have her, the location, the people that she can contact, the point of contact for the service, along with why families should go to your service. So for example, she's got a staff of 20 to meet clients' needs. They provide speech and occupational therapy and physical therapy. They also have a speech pathologist who specializes in treating students with dyslexia and apraxia. So these are things that may not show up in the automatic list that you've already selected at the very beginning. So like I said, this is your time to shine and make it yours. We'll also have a link to your website down here that will be provided once or when you're starting your application. All right. So after you've created your profile or your marketing profile, you will go to the provider agreement. This will outline your rights and responsibilities as a provider within Indiana ESA. So you'll want to ensure that you're reading through this along with our handbook, which will be up on our website here in a few, I believe next week. So just keep an eye out for that. So you'll want to make sure that you read through this. After you have, you'll sign your full legal name along with inputting that 4-digit PIN that you created at the start. Like I said, that is going to act as your electronic signature. And then once you've signed that provider agreement, you have successfully submitted your application. At that time, you will see statuses start to populate. The first one you'll see is that submitted one, and you will be able to still view your application. After your application has been opened by an account specialist, you will be placed in an under review status. So that just means that it's been opened. It does not mean that it has started the review process entirely. Now, if at any point we start to notice that we do need additional documentation from you or updated documentation, you'll be placed in an information requested status. And at that time, you can go back into your application and edit it and upload any additional documentation that we may need. If we do have all of the documentation that we need from you, you'll be approved and that your marketing profile will go live on our site. If, however, we do not receive the documentation that we need from you, or you do not meet the qualifications for the services you have selected, your application will be denied and you will be invited to apply, and you'll be invited to start a new application, or you will need to wait until you meet the qualifications. All right, and so you've got my contact information here. Like I said, I'm the Outreach and Engagement Coordinator, so I will be your point of contact if at any point you have questions during the application process or beyond. You may reach out to me. My email is right down here at the bottom. I also have our Executive Director's contact information here if you would like to reach out to her. And at this time, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. Does anybody have any questions for me?